I did give a lot of hints there about what will be on the test and what won't be on the test. I gave a lot of hints, didn't I? Yeah, would have been great to get those hints. Okay, so let's go quick finish a boom bust cycle. Okay, I think we're just about done, correct? Yeah, so something stimulates demand. It's almost always government, and it could be direct government aid, it could be indirect government aid, like in the 1990s, the government stimulated. It's a lot of times it's some kind of technological aid or some technological development. The United States, by building the railroads in the 1870s, stimulated technological growth in steel, and that increased production. Technology in the 1990s. Also direct aid, giving money to people, which was a big stimulant. It's a huge stimulant. You give money to people who don't have money, and what do they do with it immediately? Yeah, they don't save it, they spend it. So that increases demand right away, which kind of filters through the whole economy. And so something has to stimulate demand. And then once that happens, if demand starts going up, eventually producers of goods or people selling, whatever, what do they have to do? Make more, which means they need what? Workers, yeah. So what's going to happen? Employment begins to go up. They hire a few more workers, then a few more. Once you have that, more people with money means more what? Which is demand. And that's where you get, remember how we had kind of a spiral of overproduction, increase overproduction, prices drop, increase production? Same thing here. Or cutbacks drop demand, more cutbacks. Here, demand, more employment. So it starts going. And you have this going for eventually you get a few more things that will begin to happen. Once this happens, you get the basic things of profits and prices begin to go up. Oh, and stocks. Stocks begin to go up too. And then the last two things before you get to a boom, what do banks begin to do? Credit. Yeah, they become more open. Banks become more trusting. All of a sudden, hey, we're not going to make money again. The very last thing before we get to a boom, little arrow here, wages. When wages begin to go up, that's where you really get that cycle of boom. That cycle of the boom cycle, where you get workers buying more, demand begins to explode, everybody becomes incredibly optimistic, and all of a sudden, once again, we'll never have another bust and we're all going to get rich again. And what do we call this curve? Inflation. That's the inflationary curve. Prices are going up. And part of the problem is then, if you don't want that bubble to happen, ideally what you'd want is something like up here. Not a full-fledged boom, but like here. So it doesn't get overproduction. And what the United States has done, well, basically it was the policy. They still try to do it, but it doesn't work as well. From the Great Depression to about, well, the 1990s. When you look like a boom might start happening, an overproduction, the Federal Reserve raises interest rates. They force the banks to raise interest rates. Credit slows down, and people can't buy as much. So what happens? It slows the boom down. What happened today is interest rates have been so low for so long, your whole life, that interest rates have always been around, incredibly low, under 5% for prime mortgage rates. Now it's like 3%. It's just so weirdly low that when the bust happened, they try to drop rates, pretty soon they're at zero. They have to zero really fast, and they have no real easy tool. When I was your age, interest rates, well, in fact, from when I was in junior high and high school, interest rates were anywhere from 25%, the lowest was about 15%. A totally different world. So if you cut interest rates, it really has a big effect. So that's about it today. That's the boom bust cycle. Who's the first person to figure this out? Adam Smith. No, not Adam Smith. Adam Smith, he understood the market. You said it over here, Adam. Yeah, Karl Marx. But this, to Marx, this proved what doesn't work. Yeah, capitalism is flawed, get rid of it. And the cycle is going to happen, and basically what it's going to be is which direction do you want to go? How much do you want to help? Who do you help to either avoid this or get out of it? And it comes down to this basic question. The most important economic question, we've done this before, it's another version of the same thing. What's more important, the supply issue over here or the demand? What is more important? Therefore, since governments have a great amount of effect on the market, should the government be thinking, we got to help and protect the suppliers of goods or those who buy it, the demand? Demand. The supply. Obviously, they're both important in their own way, but which I guess the better way to look at it is what's more important. Now we're talking about your political point of view. You remember right, left, conservative, liberal? This is the basic element. If you're more conservative, therefore right, I guess right for you would be this direction. This is supply or demand. More supply. More conservative is supply. More liberal, demand. Because think about it. Conservative, you want to help those on top because of social Darwinism. Those are the ones who make the goods. Those are the ones who actually buy the factories, the capitalists. The demand, those are the people, the workers who buy the stuff. And so that is an economic idea. Now, when we get to the 20th century, I will actually show you with another economics chart more detail about exactly how they do that. So we're starting the basics here. It'll be called trickle down to the supply side here, and this is what we call Keynesian. It's named after a man, Keynes. So we'll get to it. All right, the boom bust. That's the cycle. Labor unions, then they had a lot of power, but it also showed this railroad strike and what happens, how much power is opposing them. After the panic, after this boom bust, labor unions will begin to grow. And I told you 24,000 strikes yesterday, right? Well, there's going to be two basic types of unionism that will then develop out of this panic. And it still exists to this day. Well, one survived, the other one at least is an idea. So I put this up here. We have two different types of unionism that will come out of this strike, the B&O Railroad strike and the Great Upheaval. And so let's go and get this down. We are broadcasting. Awesome. It's going coast to coast. Actually, around the world. I haven't looked. It's been a long time since anybody from Yemen or any place has watched it. Last year we had, for a few days in a row, somebody from Yemen watched my class. I thought that was great. I always wonder why. You know, you're really like, oh, I'm going to watch this. Yeah, I can understand some people here watch it. I had former students would email me and said, watch the class. You look about the same. I don't think that was meant to be a compliment. Okay, so a couple different forms of union, and they coalesce around two big labor unions. So we can't cover them all, obviously. So the Knights of Labor is going to be one of the first big ones. It starts as a secret organization, a guy named Uriah Stevens, but the main founder would be Terence Powderly, the main leader. Powderly, who not only had a fantastic mustache, that is pretty cool. And the Knights of Labor really saw themselves as more than just a labor union. They saw it as a movement. And so their slogan would be not just workers in one position or like all workers of one skill, like I'm in a craft or skilled union, teachers union. Well, all workers. And their slogan was, where's my mouse? Shut it off. One big union. And what they thought it would be all workers. All workers in a union is called an industrial union. So that means all skills, whether it be very specific skills or just workers in a factory, which might be skilled, but they aren't paid by their skill. And the big thing was they're anti-wage. They want to get rid of the wage system, or at least reform that wage system. That work is set up by supply and demand, but not on how much you produce or your skill. So they wanted to replace capitalism with a cooperative system. Cooperative between labor and capital, which is kind of like what It's very much like socialism. The Knights of Labor were moderate socialists. Their big issues, one of their big is 8-hour workday. 8-hour workday. 8-hour workday gave them real power as they saw it, and also working conditions, better working conditions. And that includes such things not only to make the workplace safer, but things like vacation or weekends. Yeah.
What was the cooperative system?
So it'd be a companies would be owned or would be controlled by a cooperation between capital and labor. They'd work together, which is kind of like socialism. Fine. It's moderate socialism.
Okay.
And they also push for women's rights and also civil rights. I forgot to put that down, which I can't believe I did. The hierarchy of the Knights of Labor wanted to end racial discrimination too. And they thought they could do this with a cooperative system and government regulation. Government rules to regulate business, to make sure they don't get too big, to make sure that their business practices are not so cutthroat that they will potentially mistreat workers. And they were more political. They were fearful of strikes. The Knights of Labor then would have, by 1886, 700,000 members nationwide. And since most of the industrial workers were here, they're very much focused in the big cities in the Northeast and a couple mining towns in the West. Butte would be a big Knights of Labor town. And that's one. This is an 8-hour workday, 8-hour sleep, 8-hour for recreation. Our idea of having recreation time is the creation of the Industrial Revolution. Don't think, obviously they did stuff for recreation before, but not the concept of that work time and then recreation time. That concept would have been formed for the Industrial Revolution. One more thing, 8-hour workday raises wages. Raises wages for all workers. Anyone know how? Yeah.
Because they work less amount of time for the same amount.
That could happen to get the same amount of pay, but it's less amount of time. Also, you do less work, so that might cut your pay. I mean, it could happen. You're on the right track, but think about this. You're on the right track. Company really producing goods, working 24 hours a day, especially with the electricity, with the light bulb is what I meant to say. 2 12-hour shifts. All of a sudden now you go from 2 12-hour shifts to 3 8-hour shifts. What do you need? A third more workers. A third more workers means what happens to unemployment? If you need, everybody needs a third more workers all of a sudden. It goes down, what happens to wages? Go up. And so 8-hour working day would be a huge fight. Then you probably can understand why labor unions wanted it, workers wanted it, companies didn't. Because 8-hour working day raises wages for all workers. And workers would fight, and I am not exaggerating, would die for this. This was a fight to finally force government to demand an 8-hour workday, which would happen in 1938. Now, that's kind of going away. And it's corresponding with, workers are desperate, so they'll say, I'll work more. But some companies, some countries in Europe even go below a 40-hour work week. What is France, 35 hours a week? And Germany's 38. Yeah.
What do they say for government regulation?
They wanted more government control of business, like a railroad. So they wanted government control of the monopolies. So they wouldn't be monopolies, control. Well, that's one union. Here's the other one, the American Federation of Labor, or the AFL. Its founder would be Samuel Gompers. You're welcome. You're welcome. Another name. Come here, little Frelinghuysen. Come here, little Chapultepec. Come here, Gompers. Gosh, I give and I give. Well, Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant's a good one. And Zebulon. Oh, there's so many great names. By the way, another awesome mustache. You'd never guess that facial hair was the thing. And then literally just ended World War I. Why?
There's 2 of them.
Huh? Lice.
Really?
Same with men's hair was much longer. Lice. Cut their hair short. That's why they cut their hair short in the army. Lice. Who's had lice? I haven't. So they were craft unions, and it was a federation of craft unions. It's not one big union. It's a bunch of craft unions. Craft unions are unions of skilled laborers. I'm in a craft union. In fact, my union is affiliated with the AFL now. Well, now they call themselves the AFL. They unified with the industrial union, so the AFL-CIO. They're still around. There's a hint. They accepted the wage system. They wanted more, and this is what they would say, bread and butter issues. Just regular issues. Okay, we accept there's capital, we accept there's labor, we want bread and butter. And so, they too want an 8-hour workday. They too want better working conditions. And there's more, I'm giving you the basics. Wages though. Okay, there's a wage system. We just want higher wages. Basically, they said, we want higher wages than what the labor market says. You got to pay us more. We want a little piece of the productivity. And they would do it through collective bargaining. Collective bargaining would mean the union would negotiate a contract for all workers. All workers collective bargaining. I know I mentioned this once before in the Industrial Revolution. So, for example, every 3 years, the union I negotiates with the school district, and they have come up with a collective bargaining agreement. That's the contract for time, hours, pay for every teacher in the district. And that's the way it is for mine, and that's the way unions negotiate contracts. And obviously, because of economies of scale, they can negotiate a significantly better contract for all workers than one worker alone. Obviously, that's why companies don't want unions. It's much easier to get a contract from a worker that will benefit the employer. Lastly, they would say their strategy was not so much political, it was walkouts, strikes, and also boycott companies that won't give them a collective bargaining agreement. Okay, because states and the federal government were intensely anti-union. And even though this picture is from the 1930s, I just love this picture because it kind of gives the AFL idea. You can't read it, it says, we don't want trouble, we just want a fair living for our families. So basically, we accept it. We just want a piece of the pie. So that's the AFL, which, now obviously, the capitalists, business leaders, capital, they hate unions, they hate them both. But which one do they hate more? The Knights or the AFL? Okay, so we have the Knights on this side, the craft on this side. Which one wants to change the system that they've gotten so rich on? The craft unions. The Knights want to change. Now, I know what you're thinking because they want a better wage, but remember, the Knights want to get rid of capitalism and replace it with a cooperative system. These guys accept it. They just want better wages. So I can see where you're thinking because of wages they might want more, but
this one they leave, like the walkouts.
Yeah.
But
remember, they hate them both. Which one is potentially a bigger threat? But they hate them both. So actually, yeah, they hate them for that too. They like to get rid of them both. But that's why the AFL survived. The AFL survived because they didn't demand big change. The Knights fell apart. And the Knights knew it because the Knights are very much like socialists. So therefore, what are they going to be called by the anti-union forces? Not stone.
oh,
Bomb throwing anarchists. What hit hard, I knocked my mouse. Oh, the magnet fell? I can't remember who gave this to me last year. The Ben Franklin quote, there was never a good war or a bad peace. Must have been a bomb-throwing anarchist. Oh, so the Haymarket Square affair would show the power that capital had. Now remember, there's been 24,000 strikes. And some of these were really, really violent. Oh, did I say when the country got the 8-hour workday?
1938.
Exactly. I did say that?
Yeah.
Good, yeah. 38 during the New Deal. Be one of the last big measures of the New Deal. So this is a long fight. Capital usually won, but labor had some victories like the New Deal. Labor had victories until the 1980s. 30s through the 80s, labor did really well. And then capital's decisively winning right now. So, Haymarket Square. And what it started was, and this is a photograph of it, the AFLA wanted to organize all workers to have a strike, a nationwide walkout for an 8-hour working day. And the idea was that they could get workers all over the country to not go to work and then march for an 8-hour day. This would force people to pay attention. This would also force their elected officials to realize, boy, we got to support this because we need their votes. Well, the Knights didn't want this. The leadership of the Knights of Labor were like, ooh, no, because they might use this as an excuse to get us. They didn't like that confrontation. But it happened anyways. May 1st, over 1 million workers came out, left their job, did not go to work that day, and in many places, production just ended. No place could open their doors because the workers went out demanding an 8-hour workday. And you know, this is a pretty common affair. It just happened in Detroit, literally just happened. They called it a sick out. But Detroit has cut back on public education so much, it's hard to even comprehend how much they have cut back on what students get there. And so teachers did a sleep out, a sick out, where they all called in sick, which is the same kind of idea, to get people to pay attention to the fact that they are just literally cutting public education. Why? It's for the kids. No, they're just gouging it, cutting teacher salaries, cutting schools, closing schools, increasing class sizes, getting rid of stuff. Yeah, it's incredible what's going on. It's kind of a nationwide phenomenon, but it's really bad in Chicago. Did I say Chicago? It is really bad in Chicago, but it's worse in Detroit. The Chicago Teacher Union has just voted to go on strike. That's why that's not going. Same deal. Same thing. Same thing that's happening. Seattle just had a strike last year with the teachers. Did you know that? They went on strike because they want to get the school wanted to get rid of recess, and also commit more time to practicing for standardized tests. The teachers went on strike. Saying no, that's wrong. We don't know what the word recess mentioned. No, they wanted crazy things like recess. Have actual time learning how not to do things like take a multiple choice test on standardized multiple choice test. Which I know a lot of you think, God, I wish that's all we could do. Who wants that? All of us, right? Oof. Well, back to this. There were a couple instances where police are also armed guards. Remember the Pinkertons? Do you remember them from the Civil War? The private detective agency that McClellan hired? Companies had hired them either to be guards or to break up strikes. Literally to be thugs to beat up strikers. And there were a couple places where the police were kind of used as strikebreakers too in a lot of places. Chicago, they attacked the picketers. All over the country, actually. At least 50 people lost their life in this. And so this was May Day. And by the way, after this, May 1st is going to be the International Labor Day. All around the world, Labor Day is May 1st. And so when there were a few communist countries, that would be their big celebration, May 1st, because of what happened on this day in the United States. But when workers finally won a Labor Day at the turn of the century, the politicians made sure it wouldn't have any association with this day. That's why it's Labor Day. Not quite, end of August. It's first Monday in September. How dare you not know that? No, I always think of August too because it's right after August, but also since I teach, and this is the base I never left high school. When you think about it, it's kind of weird. It's always right after school starts. So it is kind of feel like August. But that's it. On May 4th, workers, it's going to be a Sunday. We're going to have a rally at Haymarket Square. And the big thing was they were mad at police, but also company violence. Because the police just indiscriminately attacked or waded into them with their day and their nightsticks. You know what a day stick is? You know what a nightstick is? A nightstick is so that they move around rapidly and they won't have time to go get their sticks. They can carry it along with them. So it's a club about that long. They can hang on their belts. Day sticks they could store in chests. And they were about that long and about that thick, like a bat. And that was with the day sticks. Day sticks are basically gone now, so we use nightsticks now. In fact, some don't have a nightstick, they just have a blackjack. You know what a blackjack is? A piece of leather with like a iron rod. Whack. That hurt? You're tough. Yeah, the police officer here, our student research officer, yeah, he has both. He has a blackjack and a nightstick. I'd like to see a day stick. We'd be great at the big clubs. Well, at this protest, it was more like a picnic. Families came out, people came out. It was not at all like a strike. It was more just like a rally and a picnic, almost a family affair, because it's a Sunday. Well, they were surrounded by police and also guards, Pinkertons, it was McCormick Harvester, and the guy who did the Thrasher, the factory's right next door. And there might have been a little bit of pushing and shoving, but nothing really happened until somebody rolled the bomb. Oh, almost forgot this. This is a sign advertising it, and I love this because it shows what kind of country we were. English and German. That's how many immigrants lived in that area, so they knew. And there's other ones, there's a couple with Hebrew on it. I've seen ones with Polish on it. It's really cool. I just took that one. Well, somebody rolled a bomb into a group of police officers. 8 officers were killed. This is a picture of an engraving of the 8 officers. Clearly an anarchist did it. An anarchist did it. No doubt about it. This is anarchist terrorism. But who was blamed?
All the workers.
Specifically, the Knights. The Knights of Labor were blamed. And it said the Knights of Labor did this because the Knights of Labor are a bunch of what? Exactly. Bomb-throwing anarchists. And it worked. It spread. 7 Knights of Labor. And you notice how it calls them the anarchists of Chicago. Most of them were not anarchists. Sure, they were moderate socialists. They were indicted for murder, convicted, and executed. What proof did they have? None. In fact, they weren't even there. Those 7 men weren't even there, but they were convicted. And the big thing was, not only did this decimate the Knights of Labor. Has everyone got that? The Knights of Labor is pretty much done. Yeah.
I thought it was the AFL that was.
Yeah, the AFL wanted the strike. The Knights, the leadership of the Knights said no, but the Knights still got bombed.
Why didn't the AFL?
Because they wanted to get rid of the Knights.
Oh,
They wanted to get rid of the Knights. So they blamed the Knights of Labor.
for the bomb.
Yeah.
So okay. So the AFL was the one at Haymarket Square that they blamed.
Well, actually, it was the AFL actually kind of set up, but also members of the Knights were there too. But they blamed the Knights, using the bombing as an excuse to get rid of the Knights of Labor. And this is why I put down media. Whoever, this proves it. Newspapers, this is the golden age of newspapers. Chicago had over 100 daily newspapers at this time. Heck, Helena had, I think, Helena was a brand new town. I think Helena had 14 or 15. This was a time where people read newspapers. The newspapers had a lot of reporters. Now there's hardly any reporters. We have very little news anymore today. I know you can go to the internet and find stuff, but it's all the same stuff, just different places. And there's only 4 companies that control over 95% of the media in the United States today. A lot of websites, they all come from 4 companies. But back then, all these sources, but most of them were owned, the papers were owned by people who were more conservative. So, whoever controls the media, this is what we have to get, controls public opinion. If you control public opinion, you control what people think. So when people around the country started getting stories about anarchists, what did they believe? Yeah, It's anarchist. So, a couple pictures real quick. That is a picture from a newspaper that says the anarchist meeting on Lakefront, which is Haymarket Square. Anarchists. No, they weren't anarchists. They were, I'm sure they were obviously called anarchists. They were just workers, though. Here, they show it as this dark, violent, look at these scary, bearded men. It wasn't like that. It's much more complex, but it worked. The Knights would be decimated. And this would be one of many ways to fight unions. And let's get to this real quick, right here. This is how unions would be fought, and very effectively. Lockouts, these are ways. A lockout. A company will lock its doors and not let the workers in until they get rid of their union. Now you think, wait a minute, if they lock their doors, the company won't make money. So what kind of companies can do this? They have to be really what? What's that? Yeah, like really big so they can afford it. Exactly. And so this has happened a number of times. Carnegie did it to Homestead Steel back in 1892. Heck, the NFL just did it 3 years ago to force the players' union to accept lower pay. Go get a concussion and destroy your life. We will pay you less. Yeah.
Could you see the lockout?
Don't let the workers in. Don't let the workers go to work until they drop their union, so they don't get their paychecks. Scabs, those are strike breakers. They go on strike, you hire scabs, so the company keeps going. Maybe not as efficiently, but it breaks the union. Yellow dog contract. Yellow dog contracts are contracts that workers are forced to sign. They force workers to sign those contracts, saying they won't join a union. The yellow dog, or that means cowardly dog, that's the employer. Workers sign it because, well, they're scared. They need the work because they gotta live. Next, blacklist. Blacklist, anybody who wants to start a union at a company, they'll be fired and put on this list. List of union troublemakers. And it will be sent to all sorts of companies telling them, don't hire these troublemakers. What are troublemakers? Remember to labor unions. Companies still do this, kind of. Montana actually is very much against the law. But companies still do it. This would be a big deal during the Red Scare, too, after World War II. And then I've already mentioned Pinkertons, and then the propaganda is the media. You'll get information out. So, there's going to be this battle, and it's going to be a really fierce one, and a bloody one, between workers, owners, government. And so you think this might be the stimulus for change or reform. Ironically, this won't be it. It's going to be on the farms. It's going to be small farmers that will be the first real reform movement to do something about reforming the situation to get rid of this continuous threat of violence. So we got to get to, oh, by the way, that's Alan Pinkerton. It's not just, why is there a random man on a horse? That's Pinkerton. I didn't even think about it. And someone third period said, why is there a man on a horse? Good question. And we're coming to agrarian problems. Because, yes, this is the new industrial world. But the industrial world was dramatically changing the life for farmers. So let's go through these very quickly. First off, farmers are always in debt. Now, everybody's in debt. Everybody's always in debt. But farmers are more susceptible to debt. Why? Because they get paid how many times a year? Once. And all it takes is one bad year. Oh, and you'll notice something. There's all types of problems for farmers. I'm not putting things like drought down. Hail, things like that, which are horrific problems. That's kind of a constant. Farmers always have those problems. So they got problems beyond the basic environmental problems right here. But when they're in debt, that means they have to pay it back. And that will trigger overproduction. Now, we talked about overproduction in the boom-bust cycle. If there's overproduction and prices drop, what do people do? Huh? Yeah, we'll produce more. Yeah. Same kind of difference. They always produce more. And that's what happens here. But it's more than just that. There's not only new fertilizers, but we're not going to talk about that. More land and mechanization. More land went under the plow and machines. The reaper, the steel tip plow, and then going into the 20th century, the tractor. Now, on the surface, this might look good for farmers, but if, let's say the reaper, they could do the work, the first reaper could do the work of 10 men. Now all of a sudden one person can produce 10 times more, that's more production, prices drop. And there's something else. If prices are dropping, there will be an incentive for farmers to buy more machines. Because they got to produce more to make up the difference, and buy more land, which means more, not only more production, but more what? Well, actually, the competition will be there. That's part of the reason it drops the prices. But also, where they get the money?
Debt.
More debt. It's a vicious cycle. Agriculture is really hard. That's why so few people do it today. Virtually nobody. Even in Montana, it's a relatively minor part. I'm not saying there's not a lot of money, but not a lot. There's a lot of money, not a lot of people. Next, railroads. Railroads is something called price discrimination. Now you might think, yay, railroads, we can ship our goods to the market and we're all going to live happily forever after. No. Once railroads happened, the farmers became addicted to them. They needed railroads. And so railroads would discriminate against different customers for price. And there's a couple different ways. One is the most basic, obvious way. If there's only one railroad, let's say here, big grain producing area of the world, right here. Here, one railroad, that's it. Today it's Burlington, Northern Santa Fe. Back in this era, it's the Great Northern. Or Kansas, a lot of railroads. Well, actually, 2 today. But back then, there were over 20. What's the difference in price? Wherever there's a monopoly, they charge significantly more. So railroads would discriminate by monopoly power. Today, it's 10 times more. They charge 10 times more for grain out of the Highland than out of Kansas today. So farmers here are at a real handicap. But you see this if you ever fly in a plane. It's the same exact thing. Airfares out of Helena are significantly higher than airfares out of, let's say, New York City. It's cheaper to go from LA to New York than Helena to Denver, or Helena to Salt Lake City, because of monopoly. But also another thing, price discrimination works this way. What do they charge more per ton of goods? Do they charge more per ton for a really big load or a really small load? Do they charge more per ton? A big load.
Oh, small.
Yes, they charge more per ton for small loads. Because ideally for a railroad, they'd like one train to be all one product. So, you know, the big might in the long run pay more, but not per ton. So like in the High Line today, for grain cars, it has to be 110 cars. If you can't fill up 110 grain cars, you won't ship your goods. 110 is almost a mile of train. That's huge. Next, another one. Do they charge more for short distances or long distances? They charge a lot more for short distances. So all of this price discrimination is favoring whom? What kind of companies? Big. Or that might be monopolies or things that operate like a monopoly. Big companies are favored. Who's being, well, the game is rigged against small. And that last 2 things. All the deflationary policy by government. Deflation. Oh, I should say the cartoon. You know, this one's farmers. He's a farmer warning people that they're being crushed by the train. I read. Good one? I'll explain this one in just a sec. That one's kind of creepy, but I like it. Remember the gold standard. Going on the gold standard, farmers would call the crime of '73, the Bland-Allison Act. I mentioned that once before. How dare the gold standard was purposely keeping the value of money high. Also regressive taxation. Tariffs raise prices, which therefore, reduce the amount of money, which led to deflation. And that's a cartoon for tariff. There's a farmer, and this is the tariff tax. They're feeding the cow of protecting tariffs, but who's profiting, aka milking the cow? The rich capitalists. Farmers pay, the rich get richer. It's more complex than that. What farmers wanted was inflation. Farmers wanted either the printing of currency, which they call greenbacks, or not just gold, but silver. So that's what farmers wanted. These were the big agrarian problems. And what this would do is, last thing, I told you two things. We had deflation, last thing. This would trigger a political movement where farmers would begin to realize we got to get involved in politics, leading to the populist or People's Party, where they would demand reforms of capitalism. They didn't succeed.
What was it called?
Populist or People's Party. They didn't totally succeed at first, but eventually the reforms would happen. So this is a big deal. Ironically, mostly affected workers, farmers. Now the New Deal would help. Wow, we did a lot today, but we got through agrarian problems, right? So that'll be the last thing. So I think I have a few things on there. Agrarian problems is it. And we got the president's done. On Tuesday, I only have one class. First period, I have AP Euro. And so if you want to come in for the 0 period testing, if you don't have class then, or second, or even the time afterwards, if you want to come in, especially at the beginning of that, come in and ask a question about the test, please come in, I'll be around. And then I do have 3rd, 4th, 5th in a row on Wednesday.
You said the boom bust cycle.
Yeah, boom bust, you got to draw that diagram. It won't be a regular short AD, just draw the deflationary curve and the inflationary curve. But that won't be a short AD, just draw it. I'll let you have that. What is it? Good. Ooh, Watergate. Watergate, Watergate, Watergate. Sparks, you want to see my new tattoo? Do you? I don't know. Do I want to see your new tattoo?